He was invisible to them, sweeping floors, wiping sweat, cleaning up after men who thought they owned the dojo. Just a janitor, nothing more. At least that's what they believed. But the day a black belt called him out, mocking, smirking, just for fun, everything changed. The room filled with laughter, but none of them knew what was about to unfold. Because when arrogance meets humility and prejudice meets hidden strength, silence has a way of replacing laughter. What happened next left every single person in that dojo shaken to their core. The dojo was his second home, though no one there saw him as family. Every morning before the first students arrived, he unlocked the doors, polished the wooden floors, and hung the heavy bags with care. His hands bore the marks of labor. His back ached from years of work. Yet not once did he complain. To him, respect was earned not by belts or titles, but by discipline and humility. But respect was not what he received. To the students, he was background noise, someone whose name they rarely remembered. They bowed to their instructors, boasted of their progress, and laughed in tight little circles, while he swept in silence just a few feet away. And yet he watched. He studied. Each kick, each strike, each movement etched into his mind. The rhythm of their training was music to him. And though no one noticed, his body remembered more than his mop did. It was on an ordinary evening that everything shifted. The class had ended, the students were chatting, and the black belt, the pride of the dojo, arrogant in his skill, looked toward the janitor with a smirk. "Why don't you step on the mat?" "For fun," he said. The others laughed, jeers rising like smoke. To them, this was just a joke. To him, it was something far heavier. What they didn't realize was that mocking a man's place in life can awaken a strength they were never prepared to face. The janitor hesitated for a moment, his hand tightening around the mop handle. He had never asked to be noticed, never wanted the spotlight. But something in the black belt's grin told him this wasn't an invitation. It was a test. A public humiliation disguised as fun. The dojo floor, still damp from his cleaning, reflected the circle of eager faces forming around them. Some whispered, some laughed outright, and others raised their phones, ready to capture the moment a nobody was about to be humbled. To them, this wasn't a match, it was entertainment. Slowly, he placed the mop aside and stepped onto the mat. His shoes worn, his clothes ordinary, he looked nothing like a fighter. But there was a stillness about him, a quiet intensity that unsettled even those who laughed the loudest. The black belt bowed, but not with respect. It was a mocking gesture, shallow and exaggerated. "Don't be scared," he said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. The dojo erupted in chuckles. They didn't see the years etched into the janitor's muscles, the way his eyes followed every movement, the patience that only comes from watching silently for so long. They saw only a man out of place, a man they thought had no business on the mat. The black belt lunged first, fast, confident, reckless. His fist sliced through the air with precision. But the janitor slipped just out of reach, calm as still water. Gasps rippled through the room. It wasn't luck. It was control. The black belt narrowed his eyes, his smirk fading. He tried again, this time a sharp kick, the kind meant to rattle confidence. But once more the janitor sidestepped with ease, his body moving like he had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in silence. The room grew quieter. The laughter thinned, replaced by whispers. "Did you see that? How did he dodge so easily?" But then came the words, the ones that cut deeper than any punch. "You think you belong here?" The black belt sneered between strikes. "You'll always be nothing more than the guy who cleans our floors." Laughter returned, sharper this time, crueler. Those words weren't just aimed at him. They were a reminder of the hierarchy, the lines they believed could never be crossed. The janitor's chest rose and fell, but his eyes never wavered. That was the moment the room shifted. What began as a game of humiliation was now a test of dignity. The black belt, breathing harder now, launched a final flurry, punches, kicks. A storm of strikes meant to end the spectacle. And then it happened. With a single precise movement, the janitor stepped inside the storm, his hand guiding the black belt's attack past him. The fighter stumbled, his balance broken, the room erupting in gasps. The janitor didn't strike back. He didn't need to. His restraint was louder than any punch. And in that silence, the crowd realized This was no ordinary man. The black belt's pride was burning. He had been embarrassed in front of his students, his authority slipping with every failed strike. His face flushed, his movements grew reckless. This was no longer a spar, it was desperation. With a roar, he charged one final time, throwing everything he had into a spinning kick, meant to finish the janitor once and for all. The crowd leaned forward, certain this would be the end. But in a heartbeat, everything flipped. The janitor stepped in, not away, not aside, but directly into the storm. His hands moved with lightning precision, catching the black belt's leg midair, redirecting the force with a fluid grace that spoke of years of discipline. In one motion, the dojo's pride was on the mat, gasping for breath, stunned, silent. The room froze. Phones dropped. Mouths hung open. He hadn't struck out of anger. He hadn't humiliated his opponent. He had simply revealed the truth. Beneath the uniform, beneath the belt, beneath the arrogance, strength does not care for status. The janitor stood tall, calm, his chest rising steady as the black belt scrambled to his knees. For the first time, the dojo looked at him, not as a janitor, not as the man with a mop, but as a fighter, as someone who had carried his strength quietly all along. And yet the silence wasn't just about the fight. It was about what the crowd had witnessed. A man dismissed because of his job, mocked because of his place, underestimated because of the color of his skin, standing above the very system that tried to belittle him. One moment of truth had shattered years of prejudice. The dojo wasn't laughing anymore. The black belt slowly rose to his feet, his arrogance shattered. He couldn't meet the janitor's eyes, and for once, neither could the crowd. The dojo, usually filled with chatter after class, was cloaked in a silence so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were listening. The janitor didn't gloat. He didn't need to. With quiet dignity, he picked up his mop, the very symbol they had used to mock him, and walked back to his corner. But this time, no one saw the mop as weakness. They saw it for what it was. A reminder that greatness can wear the humblest of uniforms. What shook them most wasn't just that he had won, it was how he had won. With restraint, with grace, without needing to prove himself through cruelty. He showed them that true power doesn't need to shout. It simply exists, undeniable. And beneath it all lay an uncomfortable truth. They hadn't underestimated him because of his size or even his silence. They had dismissed him because of who he was. A janitor, a black man, someone they believed belonged only in the shadows of the dojo, never on its mats. That prejudice had blinded them, and in one unforgettable moment, the veil was ripped away. From that day forward, whispers spread, not about the black belt's skill, but about the janitor who carried himself like a warrior. Respect shifted, perceptions cracked. A lesson etched itself into every person who had watched. You never know the strength a person carries beneath the weight of your judgment. And the question that lingered, long after the floor was clean, long after the lights went out, was simple. Haunting. How many more people do we silence, mock, or ignore? Simply because of the labels we place on them? Because sometimes the ones we overlook are the ones who carry the greatest strength of all.